It's time for another garden update. The potatoes in the straw are doing very well, and we had a freeze on the morning of the 26th, and I covered those with more straw. In the straw we have Kennebec and Yukon Gold. The potatoes in the grow bag are also doing very well, and in there we have Purple Majesty, Red Pontiac, and Kennebec. I planted 2 straw bales with sweet potatoes. In the middle I have Korean Gold. That's one I tried to get last year but was out of stock, so I'm looking forward to trying that one. And then on the outsides I have a purple variety that I got from Trader Joe's. In the second bale I have Korean Gold in the middle again, and on the outsides are some red Garnet sweet potatoes. The herbs that I planted in the 5-gallon grow bags have sprouted and are starting to grow. In this first bag we have cilantro. Next to the cilantro we have some basil. I planted all of these bags too thick, so I'll be thinning them out to about 3 or 4 plants per bag. Right behind the basil is some parsley, and I'm hoping the butterflies will leave that alone because we have plenty of fennel they can use. To the left of the parsley are some chives, and I'll be planting some of that out into the main garden. In the 5th and final grow bag that we have herbs in is some oregano, and it's very hard to see because the plants are so tiny. I overwintered 1 carrot to save seeds from, and it'll be starting to flower soon. I did a video on how to save carrot seeds, so if you want to see that video, I'll put a link down below. I finally have peppers and tomatoes in the ground, and some of the peppers actually have small peppers on them already. Right now I have 2 rows of pepper plants. I have a little bit of spinach planted, and it's still pretty small. I have 2 rows of tomatoes, and out in the main garden I have Audrey's Love, Mary's Cherry, Bundaberg Rumball, and Chocolate Champion. I'm growing these radishes for the seed pods, so I'll only be saving about 3 or 4 of those. Here's a look at the second row of peppers. I'll give you a list of everything I have planted out there in the next video. I'll explain why I'm not doing it now at the end of this video. Along with the tomatoes that I mentioned before, I also planted a Rosella Purple. They say hotter weather is coming our way, so these will start growing pretty quickly. The carrots are coming up pretty well, and in some spots a little too well. I got them planted a little bit too thickly, but I'll thin them out later. The lettuce is also coming up pretty well. This variety is called Butter Crunch. The garlic is really taking off with all of the recent rain we've had. The fennel's starting to grow pretty well, and I think I'll let a couple of volunteers grow this year. It's hard to believe that the Musabasju bananas came out of dormancy only a couple of weeks ago, but they're almost chest high now. And in a couple of months, they'll be over 10 feet tall. Right next to them, I have some yacon that's starting to show some growth. That made it through the winter just fine, like the bananas did. And next to the Musabasju bananas, there are some Musavelatinas that haven't sprouted yet, along with a couple of other things. I'll be using quite a few grow bags this year for some of my projects and other things, and in this one I have a long purple eggplant. This tomato isn't supposed to get very tall, so I have it in a grow bag. It's called Banana Toes. In another part of the yard I planted some more tomatoes. This one is Shimo Furry. These are all variegated types. Next we have a variety called Walter's Fancy. Just beyond Walter's Fancy is one called Haley's Rainbow. Closely related to Walter's Fancy is Elsie's Fancy. The 5th type of variegated tomato that we're growing is called Pico's Pride. The peas in the grow bags are growing very well, and I'm not sure how they're going to do because we have some very warm weather headed our way. Here's a closer look at some of the flowers. This one is called Lillian's Caseload. Over next to the peach tree, I'm letting some common milkweed grow, and we grow that just for the monarch butterflies. I'm going to experiment with growing some morning glories as ground cover this year. And if you grow morning glories, keep in mind that the seeds are toxic, so keep them away from your children and pets. Also keep in mind that morning glories are heavy reseeders. Along with the peas in the grow bags, I also have some peas planted over by the fence on a string trellis. The corn is just now starting to grow, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this generation turns out. The onions that I planted are pretty far behind and are just now starting to grow well. This is that little orange hat tomato that I started indoors back during the winter. So this year I'm getting my first tomato harvest in May. That's about all I have for you this time. I had a much better video that was almost finished when my hard drive crashed. I lost hundreds of hours of work and thousands of video clips and photographs. It was pretty disappointing and discouraging, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm still a pretty blessed person. It's one of those things that I have no one to blame but myself. I just threw this video together with clips that I still had on my SD card in my camera. Hopefully I'll be able to do better in the future, so thanks for sticking with me. I'll regroup and keep going forward like I always do. We'll see you next time.